Okay, so this is Jara. Now, she's been growing her hair out for almost a decade. And now it's finally all one length and almost down to her waist. So, naturally, I cut her long hair short. You want to check out what happened? Yeah, let's go. Well, hello, I'm Justin, by the way.
I'm Jara.
Jara, it's a pleasure to meet you. Have a seat right here for me, if you will. Look at this hair. Let me see if I can, okay, I'm gonna put this all forward. See if we can even get all this in frame here. How long is your hair?
It's very long.
It's still, we're not even there yet. Let's see, now we're close to it. Okay, you've got some hair. So tell me a little bit of what's going on.
So I've been growing my hair a long time.
Okay.
I like long hair, but I recently started working and I'm having trouble working full time and maintaining my hair.
Okay.
When I'm at work, moving around, it doesn't move well with me, and so it gets very tangled.
Okay.
But I feel like I'm always having to think about my hair. I'm always thinking about like keeping the roots clean, but the ends oiled so it doesn't look dry and tangly. Throughout the day, I'm having to make sure that it's not just becoming a tangled mess behind me while I'm working.
Totally.
I'm also a volunteer firefighter.
It's amazing.
Thanks. So going to fires, I have to worry about getting it back, and obviously fires are not planned. So I'm driving
Hopefully
and trying
not.
to put it in ponytails and braids. And, so there's just a lot of reason for me to cut it now.
Okay.
In my job, I deal with evidence.
Okay.
So also just having it hanging into things is a problem. So I'm always having to put it back while I'm dealing with evidence.
Okay. This is really interesting. Sorry, I can just let you talk. Okay.
Thanks.
I've never actually worked on a client that had like these particular concerns, and they're all like bringing up new ideas of like, okay, well, there's some, things have to get back. Like you can't have your hair fall. It's not a matter of like, it bugs me if it falls forward. Like you can't have it falling in evidence. Like that's not a thing.
Exactly.
And
I
fire
love
is a
having
real
long,
problem.
Yes. But it's just not working for me anymore. It's not working with my lifestyle.
Okay. Talk to me about there is a donation or what's going on with this?
Yes, I would love to donate it.
Do you have a, which is awesome, first of all.
Thank
Do you
you.
have a particular charity in mind that you want to donate it to?
I would like to donate to Angel Hair.
Angel Hair?
Yeah.
Okay. And do we know the exact length that, I can look it up if we don't. Do you know the exact length that they require?
I don't recall, but I know that if we were to cut it short, like we would cover it.
Okay. So we've got a couple options, and I'm going to run you through a lot of questions.
Okay.
So typically in a scenario where we are going to donate, what I like to do is make sure that, one, we have enough, right? So we want to make sure, okay, we're going to meet their minimum requirements because we sure wouldn't cut some off and then send it in and have it not be long enough for them.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, that just gives us kind of like our one baseline. So we know we have to take at least this much off. And then after that, it's not a matter of let's just take a bunch off and we know we'll get it in there somehow, we'll get enough.
Sure.
Let's figure out what the least amount that we can take off and meet the requirements. And then from there, figure out what's the best option for your hair and then move that amount up and down accordingly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that way we're not just like over, like cutting just to cut.
Okay.
I want to get you in a length that is going to make sense for you, that you're going to like, but most importantly, that you're going to feel comfortable in the length. Okay. I will say before we even start, it isn't, and I say this all the time, I feel like, it isn't the length that's going to work for you, okay? So meaning that it's not like hair this long you're going to look terrible in. If it was this long, you would look way better. It doesn't matter where we leave this length. It all matters what we do in that length. So how I layer that, where we put volume, where we take volume away, all of those things are going to contribute to whether or not it functions for you, accentuates things about your face shape, or doesn't accentuate certain things about your face shape. That's what I mean by when I say functions for you, right? And then how much time you're gonna have to style it and all those things. So all of that is to say, we can figure out a length that feels comfortable, and then we'll just do the best thing in that length, which is gonna look great. It's not like taking this much off is all of a sudden, now it's gonna look so much better. Okay. It just ends up being different. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's not a bad thing either. So it's not telling you to keep it long. Okay. It's just to let you know, like, I don't want you to feel like I need to take it to a certain length or it's not gonna be right. We can make that happen, right? Okay. So tell me a little bit about I know that you're struggling with some of the tangles and stuff like that. Yeah. And I know that there's like the work. So are you working Monday through Friday? It's like full time.
Yes,
okay. Yeah. And then you volunteer on top of that. Okay. So when you're working, do you typically always have that pulled back? You're here right now.
No, I don't. I end up usually at some parts of the day with it up, but it's so heavy that it wants to kind of fall down.
Okay.
And also, I have long hair because I like to wear it down, so I end up wearing it down most of the time.
Okay.
Until it starts to get tangly, and then I'll throw it up just to get it out of my way.
Walk me through your day-to-day styling routine. You shower in the morning, you shower at night.
Both.
Yeah.
But I prefer to shower at night. That way I have time to dry it because it's just such a process. There's a lot of hair here.
Yes.
So if I shower at night, I put on some heat protectant spray, some detangler, and then I blow dry it.
Okay.
And I just kind of wrap it up while I sleep. And then I don't really need to do much in the morning. It's usually pretty good. And then I'll try to go a couple of days with dry shampoo. And then I end up showering in the morning just because of work schedule and not wanting to go to bed with wet hair. Because even if I blow dry it, it still's a little bit damp. Like, there's just a lot of hair here.
Walk me through your blow dry. So what does that look like? Like physically, what are you doing when you blow dry it at night?
I usually flip it upside down, blow dry. I try to blow dry a lot in here because that's where it tends to stay wet.
Okay.
I try to get a little bit of volume in here. Okay. And that's really it.
Okay. You have a lot of fine hair.
Yes.
Like a very dense amount.
Yeah.
So you sound so much like Deanna, like my wife. So, like in your struggles, or same thing. Always feels like this back here is where all the dampness is. Does your scalp get oily?
Not as much as I'm getting older. It used to.
It used to. And when it did you feel like it was more dramatic back here?
Yeah, that's true. Even so, I use dry shampoo sometimes, and like through here, and then like a little bit in here.
Okay. And you're mainly using that just to take the feeling, the texture out of your hair. Or is it for a specific look? Like, does it help give you volume or anything like that?
It does help give it a little bit of volume, yeah.
Okay. And is that part of the reason that you're using it?
Yes.
Just to get a little bit of that lift?
Okay. Yeah, and just to extend shampoos because it's such a process to wash it all and dry it all.
How long does it take you to dry your hair right now when you dry it?
I mean, I probably have to give myself like a good hour for shampoo, for the whole process, for washing it and drying it.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, long hair is no joke in the terms of maintenance. People think it's easier. I don't think that it's less maintenance. No. I mean, it's just different maintenance, but just getting the actual physical act of getting it from wet to dry takes longer than most people's entire process of like drying their hair using products, round brushing, flat ironing, all of that. Right? So,
yes, I've had short hair and I've had long hair, and I feel like this being super long has been the most maintenance because all throughout the day I'm having, even if I'm just finger combing it, I'm constantly doing things with it.
Okay. So one of your bigger concerns is the fact that it constantly tangles?
Yes.
Has that always been an issue, or is that something that you've noticed more as it's getting longer?
As it's longer, and especially if I wear any kind of collar or a hood, then I really have to watch out for it.
You've had it layered and stuff like that in the past?
Yes.
Okay. Did you notice a difference in the way that it tangled? So don't think versus now, right? Think of one length versus having layers at any length. Did you notice any difference in how it tangled when you had layers versus not having layers?
I think it tangled less, but it's been a really long time, to be honest.
Okay. The only reason I'm asking is because a lot of times people think that if you just layer hair or take it shorter and layer it, then all of a sudden it's not going to be tangly.
Yes.
And that isn't always true. It can be true, but in some cases, it also actually will still get very tangly, still have much of an issue. And if that's the process for addressing that particular problem, then that process actually is more of a problem than anything. Because now you've added layers into somebody that maybe layers isn't the best option for them. Maybe it's not what they wanted, to try to fix a problem that this did not fix and still created the other problem of now I have a hairstyle I don't like trying to address this problem that it didn't even fix.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So I don't think that's going to be your case because I think typically if in the past you're like, no, it's an absolute nightmare, both ways, right? And like you would be aware of it. You'd remember it because you'd be like, I can never get my hair to not tangle. The fact that you're saying right now you've been through those things and you're saying right now you feel like you're noticing more tangles leads me to believe that it's more about just the extra length that's just getting tangled and it's just more. Does that make sense? Like it's not tangling more, it's just more hair that's tangled, so you're dealing with more of it.
Yes.
Does that,
Yes.
So that, I mean, I'm a little bit less concerned with that. Is there anything that you've had in the past since you had it layered and you've had it shorter? Is there anything you've had in the past that you absolutely loved or hated?
I love like 90s layers, the blowout look.
Cool.
I love that. But I'm super low maintenance, so styling all that every day, I don't know if I would actually do it.
Okay.
I've had a pixie cut. I didn't love that on me. I love pixie cuts, but it didn't feel like it suited me.
Okay.
I've had, obviously if I've had a pixie cut, I've had a lot of lengths in between.
Yeah.
I love long hair. And I think short hair is very cute on other people, but I'm used to having long hair. So
Nothing wrong with that.
I kind of identify with it.
That's good. Okay, so that makes actually more sense because that's different than liking it. So there's people that like, I just like my hair, right? I feel comfortable in it. And what I'm hearing you say is that it's part of your identity. It's not just that you like your long hair, but it's part of how you like present yourself.
Yes.
Does that make
sense? That's true. That's true. But also I really want to donate it. I just lost an aunt to cancer, and I know that they can have donations that are sometimes 12 inches or 15 inches or whatever, but then they have to trim it up a lot.
Yeah.
So I want to give them a lot to work with.
Definitely. Let me look at your hair. Usually that's because it's really damaged at the ends, is why they'll like need to like deal with it more. Or really, you know, if it's like you've got this much length, but it's only strong to here, and then it's just all like thin and wispy. Sure. They'll have to like take it to where it's, you know, like stronger, right? So let me just get an idea of how much length we're looking at. Okay. So there's gonna have to be come up with some of it. All right. Not that we're gonna do this. I'm just really getting boundaries here. Okay. And you might say this length, and I might go we're not even getting near that, right? Okay. Let's not do that. Okay. But just out of curiosity, what's the absolute shortest, not layers or anything, just the length, what's the absolute shortest you would feel comfortable having your hair?
Probably to my shoulders.
Okay. So if you cut all of your hair to your shoulders, would that would not feel uncomfortable for you? And it's fully okay to be like, that wouldn't feel, or if you feel like, no, I think I could rock that. Sweet.
It would be a change, but I think it would be kind of exciting too.
Okay. All right. What's your biggest concern about doing that? When you say like it would be a change, like what do you feel like might go wrong?
It's just that I would in general hate it, but it goes back. It's hair.
Is there any specific style in that? Like when you think of like, oh, this looks terrible, like this is what makes me nervous, right? Like what if it looks like this? Is there like a certain look that makes you fearful of taking that length? Like something it's going to do? It's going to get really big and look like this big weird, you know, like anything like that?
Yes. Sometimes short hair can be kind of poofy. Sometimes it can look kind of scraggly. I'm not great at beauty in general. Hair, I don't have a lot of experience. I'm not great at styling. So like daily maintenance is just being able to make it look good. Easy.
Is there anything about your face shape or face structure that you want to take emphasis away from, that you're maybe a little bit more insecure about? You can answer no too. That's fine. I mean, I'm not searching for something. Like if you're like, actually no, this is the time where I want people to be a little bit arrogant.
The hardest thing for me right now is I had celiac and I got really sick for a while, and it took a toll on my skin and hair. Okay. And I feel like it aged me a lot. So I have a lot of wrinkles. I know part of that's just part of getting older, and I don't.
It's the funniest thing. I don't see it at all. I feel like you look really young, but okay. Thanks. I mean, we're own worst critics, but go on.
Right. So yeah, that's probably my biggest insecurity.
Okay. What is your favorite thing when you look at like what do you love about your features?
That's tough too. Probably my eyes.
Your eyes. We said that's the same thing that we said. Like you heard us all. Stuff like the first thing I said when I looked at her, I was like, "You have beautiful eyes." She's probably like, "Creep." This guy just like run at me and tell me I have beautiful eyes. But you know you do. You also have a really pretty smile, and you've got really strong cheekbones. That's just what I'm seeing, right? And the reason I ask you what you're seeing is because I want to make sure, one, that we're on the same page. Two, I want to make sure that like maybe I see like, oh, you've got great cheekbones, but you feel like your cheekbones are like really odd and big, and you want to take emphasis away from them. And I think they look great, and I try to go and emphasize them. We've got a problem, right? Doesn't matter what I think. Okay. Knowing that there's a lot of room to play here, what I want to do at this point is figure out what the minimum requirement is, and then figure out how much hair we have to give away. Okay. And then I think we're going to be way above that because all the lengths in my head so far are all longer, if I'm honest, than what you're talking about. Okay. And I'll explain why, but dramatically shorter than it is now. Okay. And so I don't see it not fitting within the realm of what they require to be donated. and having extra even on top of that.
Great.
So let's figure out, I'm gonna have you do this. We're gonna get some of this out of the way before we have so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some of it taken off.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about what we're gonna do now. Okay. We're gonna be like, now we got this length, how do I make this look good and work for you? Okay. So I'm actually gonna have you, I'm gonna have you throw your hair back in a really tight ponytail for me. All right, so let's see. We've gotta be at least 8 inches. Let's turn this around. So let me just see where we're at here. So that's a foot. That's still very long. Okay, so we're not even close. Just to give you perspective here, right? So imagine that's 8 inches, and that's still that's 12 inches, sorry. So imagine cutting it up to here, we're still like well at a foot. We're well into still being safe for the length ranges that I'm thinking. So let me walk you through the length ranges I'm thinking first.
Okay.
Kind of why, then we'll just cut this off. So I'm thinking that from the way that you style, okay, so first of all, there's a couple of things that we want to take into consideration. And one is, what I wouldn't want is all one length, just all one length there to here. And the reason for that is because it's basically going to cause you some of the same concerns that you're already running through. It's not going to feel really styled, right? It's just going to be a shorter version of what you already have. It's not going to feel like there's much of a difference probably in the tangle. Even though we take a lot of it off, I still think you're going to run into tangles. You're not going to get a lot of benefit from what you're still getting on it as a detriment. It's like, I took all this length off, but it still kind of tangles. It doesn't really go into the shape that I want it to go into. It doesn't really feel any different. I've just got a different length. So what we want, in my opinion, is something where it's got a little bit more shape, something that actually accentuates things about your face shape, something that you can play with, but still meets the criteria. So it's still got to be long enough to get back in a ponytail. It's still got to be easy to get off your face. It's still got to be easy to maintain. Part of the reason that layering can be a possible problem to maintain or to style is if it's too choppy at the ends or whatever, it doesn't blend in. If you don't spend time doing it, you see all those little ends, right? So what can happen is it's like, okay, your hair's this long. Well, now we've got layers, let's say, that are in here, okay? Well, if all those little ends are like really frayed or whatever, you kind of see all of those split ends up through here. Now it feels like your hair is unhealthy. When in reality, it's no less healthy than it was 5 seconds before you layered it. You just notice all of those ends against the mid shaft of your hair versus all those ends being right down here.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So what we want to do though is we can still do layering. We just have to be very cognizant of the way that we layer it, like texturize those in enough that they blend so you don't see it. So when I comb through it at the end, right after it's dry, it should basically look like, once I comb through it and it's dry, it basically looks one length. But when I shake it out like this, you can see layers of movement. So they're there, they're just not presenting as being choppy layers.
Okay.
Right? So that's why I thought the one thing that you said that really makes me feel like we should leave it a tiny bit of length. So I'm thinking somewhere like in the collarbone area, maybe even a tiny bit longer, but with shorter layers, is that when I asked you what do you love? It's the voluminous, like a lot of movement and texture shapes, right? Can those be done in shorter? Absolutely. But the thing is, you see more of that if your hair's a little bit longer. Yeah.
Okay.
So once I take it up to this length, let's say for instance, right, and it's really, like we layer all that up, you can see the movement and texture, but it's not quite the same. You're not going to see as much of it as if we also have hair all the way down here, also giving all that movement and texture. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So all of a sudden now you've got more of that going on, and it feels more like, oh, I've got this completely different style than I did before with a lot of movement and texture. But at that length, for me to achieve that on a shorter length, that means I got to take these layers up a bit. I've got to add more layering in. So even though those layers are long enough to balance with this length, they're still quite a bit short, right? So it's a little bit harder to get all of that stuff into one ponytail or to hold that back and be sure that that's not going to get in your way. Or even more importantly, like iron stuff, being able to like braid that or pull that back somewhere, like it's really going to stay back off of your face. Like to me, like that's kind of the non-negotiable. It has to have enough length to be able to do that. Or if you take it shorter, you're just like pinning it a lot to make sure that that does not fall out, right? So to me, like on a simplicity standpoint of like just making something that gives you, kind of hits all the points that you like, right? It's going to feel dramatically shorter to you, if I'm honest, even at this length. While it doesn't feel as short as this, that there's not a massive difference in length that you're leaving there. It will feel longer, but it's going to be a totally different thing than that length. The other thing that you said is that there is a bit of length is part of your identity. So I do think that you could wear short. Don't get me wrong. you could go quite short and it would look great on you. Like there's no question in my mind that we could take you into, legitimately, I could think we could get you into pixie that would look super cute. That's not really the question, right? It's whether or not we could accentuate what we want to accentuate and have fun with it. The question is, how are you going to feel in it, right? And if you don't, if there's just part of you, like you said, where you're like, I just never really liked the pixie, it just didn't feel right or whatever, right? When you go short like that or whatever, then that's really going to matter more than how it looks or how you feel even when you leave here, right? So when you mentioned that there's part of your identity that's kind of like long hair, there's part of it that's okay. Granted, you're speaking, I think, more specifically to having this long of hair, right? That creates that, but also this can still feel long, where this length immediately feels short. There's a very, like, once it comes off your shoulders, for most people, I find that there's a big difference between this feels like I still have hair, right? They might call it medium length. Some people call it long. Some people call it whatever. But this still feels like I have hair because there's some hair on my shoulders. It feels like I've got some length. The minute it comes up off, or like right here, all of a sudden now it feels like I've got short hair, right? Yeah. And then short, like my length is really short hair. Right? That's pixie, you know? So I think the best thing that we could do is bring that into here, give you some layers for movement, leave it long enough you can pull it back, give you a lot of volume. Like it would be fun and cute. I think you get all the movement and texture that you want out of it. I think it feels very, very, very different. And I don't think that taking it to your boundary line, right, of going short, would be better. It would just be different. Do you feel me on that?
Yes.
I don't see a lot of like benefit at this point, right? The ROI isn't as high for going extra short. We can always take you extra short or shorter. Does that make sense at all though?
Yeah, complete.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Just gonna test it one last time because I like to be safe. All right, we are at 16 inches of hair there. All right. 1, 2, 3. And gone. That's kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
When you think about it. Now don't pull it forward yet. Do you feel the difference though?
Yeah, it's so much lighter.
Does it feel crazy?
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's not going to look great, but let's just pull it forward just to see this light. Okay. I'm really. Okay. So here's what I'm thinking. Length probably somewhere in there, so those little ends come off, right? Okay. So somewhere in here. How do you feel? And we're not gonna. How do you feel about shorter pieces, like some layering that kind of starts in this range?
I love face framing pieces.
Okay, good.
When I pull my hair back, I like some pieces that can come out. I like the movement of them. I tend to touch my hair a lot, and I like the movement when there's face framing pieces.
Is there anything that's gonna be? I mean, because I know that. Like I'm thinking obviously about like, okay, we have the prerequisites of keeping your hair back off your face for some very specific and crucially important reasons. Yes. Is there a length that it has to be for you that you've found? Like for instance, you know, like if they were to start like at your cheekbones, like right in here, whatever, and they just tucked back, but they didn't all, you know, there's like tiny bit that kind of fell forward. They wouldn't get back behind your ears, but you could take a bobby pin on both sides. Would that work?
Yes.
That would actually like keep it back enough for you on a day-to-day basis, or like, okay. Then we have tons of options. I normally wouldn't do this, but what I'm gonna do is we're gonna take the length up. I'm not gonna tell you exactly what we're gonna do. We're just gonna do it. Okay? Because at this point, let's be honest, like your hair's already cut off. There's not much I'm gonna do that you're gonna be absolutely like absurd. Like, just think that we're gonna have some movement and texture. We're gonna get you into the direction that you wanna go. Okay. And if I didn't feel very confident that you're gonna like it, I would not be crazy enough to do it. But
okay. I trust you.
Let me play with it a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Let's get you shampoo then. Let's see if this turns out. Okay, now this is the perfect time for a quick break. If you're liking this content and you want to see more of this, I need you to do me a big favor still. I need you to comment. I need you to share this with your friends. And if you feel inclined, I need you to subscribe. It's totally free. But you need to let the algorithm know that you enjoy this style of content so that it will show this content, then allowing me to produce more of this for you. So again, help me help you. And yeah, with that said, let's see what happens with the actual cut. Okay, so your hair tangles, which is actually for your hair texture is not an uncommon thing for it to be pretty tangly. So like, it's not like this is something that's completely unheard of. But even when we take the length off, you can see like, I'll spin you around here a little bit, but back here, there's still some tangles like down at the bottom, right? This stuff
Yeah.
is going to get tangled. So what I like to do is put in a little bit of like a light oil. The thing is, we want to make sure that if we're going to use an oil, that it's light enough that it's not going to end up being greasy in your hair, because that can be a problem for your hair. So we do need a little something to kind of help like detangle it. And I like to put it in actually before I cut it. The only reason for that, so that would translate to you at home as just getting out of the shower and working through some through the mid shaft and the ends. I do it before I cut it because I like to actually be able to comb it through and make sure that it's equally distributed. And it's kind of like, it keeps it from getting tangled up as I go through the haircut. This one I'm using is from Way, and I like it just because it's pretty light. So I'll use like 3 pumps. Okay. And I'll just kind of work it through my hands and then basically just work it from mid shaft down. So just on this stuff, and I'll just kind of work it through like this. So I'm kind of combing it through with my hands right now, getting like some of those larger kind of tangles out. You probably feel like you lost 20 pounds and you haven't even done a thing, right? Like, yeah, this is going to be, that's what I'm looking for. Keep on grabbing purple, and I'm looking for this. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. You get out of the shower. I'm just going to walk you through the full step-by-step process, okay? This, again, probably not what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis, but I really just want to, like, bring this home. If you want to take the time to really kind of, like, style your hair, here's an option for you. You're going to want to get out of the shower. You towel out your hair. See how this has got dampness down here?
Yes.
And this is pretty dry.
Yes.
Okay. I want all of it to be this damp, and it actually makes a difference, okay? So I'm going to start here, work through this. So it basically would be like you get in the shower, you towel out your hair, and then you just comb the tangles out. And if you just start applying product at that point, you'll be okay. The reason I say that I kind of key that out as it's important that it's all the same dampness is because people a lot of times will pull their hair up, they'll start doing their makeup, they'll do all these other things, and then they'll come back and add product. And now it's it's variants of how damp it is. And we need it like all damp because it's going to change the way that the product distributes. In your hair, for this shape, I want product in all of your hair, roots to ends. I want volume on the sides. I want bend and control. I want volume on top. I don't want big hair, but I do want bend and soft movement, right? And bend and soft movement creates volume, okay? So that you kind of have to you're going to get volume if you've got bend and movement. You're going to get some volume. But usually I find if people try to create volume, they're going to get the bend necessary to get this. But if they only try to create like a little bit of bend, they won't really get volume because they'll do a little bit too little. Right? So I'll show you how, but so you want to like focus on like getting all of the volume and everything else, but like get the right amount of bend, and then you're inherently going to get the volume with it that you need. But we want to make sure that we get the right amount of this, right? I think I said that wrong. What I meant is if they just focus on volume, they'll get like root lift and then like, like tilt the head over, but they're not doing all the stuff to get everything else, the bend and everything that we need. And that's inherently going to create this, but also it's going to create the style that we want for yours. So I'm going to use a little bit of a mousse.
Do you have a mousse that you prefer?
So this is called Caviar. This is right here. Okay. And it's a styling mousse from Alterna. And this, I like it. It gives her volume. It doesn't feel like there's a ton of stuff in your hair, but you're going to feel a little bit. But it gives her like a reasonable amount of volume. Again, we're not trying to get big. I'm trying to get shape on yours. So when I style it, I think you'll understand. Like when I show you, you'll be like, oh, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. It's kind of hard to understand like why I differentiate between those two. Like big hair is not shape. Just a bunch of volume is not necessarily styled like a good style. It's not usually advantageous to what people actually want.
Yeah.
Right? So like shape in the right areas, that's going to be important. Since I want this on all hairs, roots to ends, I'm just going to start it basically anywhere as long as I can just get it all through the hair. And then I'm just going to make sure that it's all pretty even. So for instance, if you start here, wherever you put your palm, you're going to have most of your product right there, right?
Yeah.
That first. So I started back here, so most of the product is right here. So there's a little bit less here, a little bit less there, so I need to add a little bit more to kind of get equal coverage. So sounds ridiculous. But actually paying attention to it, it's all these little things that are going to add up to make it easier for you. Then the last thing I'll do is I'll actually comb through it with a comb, not even a brush. I'll literally comb because the teeth on a comb are closer together than most brushes. So it'll help it get a little bit more distributed, a little evener, more evener. That's not a word. More evenly. That might be a little bit more on par, right? It's gonna get more evener if I do it this way. I'm definitely a stylist, not an English scholar. People always like not make fun of me, but they in the comments they always yell at me for spelling stuff wrong or like saying stuff wrong. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Like without a spell check, oh my gosh, I would be a mess. Like people would be like, this is the most ignorant person I have ever heard from in a comment section. Like, how is this guy even a thing? Okay, so now I know you parted down the middle typically, and we can do that. So here's why I push us away from it. I want to create a certain amount of volume on top, right? So we want to create volume like up in this area on you. I want this to lay in a little bit. You've got, again, great facial structure. So you've got good bone structure to begin with. So we don't need to like, you've already got a strong jawline. I don't need to like hyper accentuate that jawline, but I would like to accentuate a little bit more on the cheekbones. But also I want to bring more attention to the eyes, right? So I want that focus to come in here a little bit more. The way I achieve that is by creating a little bit more volume up through here, but I also achieve that by creating a little bit less volume down through here, right? So that means that we want a little bit extra volume on the top. Now the issue with parting it down the center is that anytime you part down the center, it's not like it's a bad look, but it will dip right here in the back a little, in the center a little bit, which is gonna flatten that out a little bit, just simply because there's a part right there. So if there's no hair there, it's gonna dip, it's gonna create a little bit less volume there. But that inherently also creates a little bit more volume through here, which can be okay, but there's a fine line between volume here and volume here. So volume here dipping in, that's one thing. Volume here is another thing. So this adds width. Volume up here brings the eye up and adds definition. Do you see the difference there? So for me, I'm thinking, well, I want to create more of that definition. Then if I part it off to the side, like this on one side, I'm going to create a little bit more volume through there. It's going to give me a little bit more volume in here. It's going to dip in a little bit more through there. I'm going to get, so it's going to slightly modify where that volume sits. This is not a huge difference, but it translates to a huge difference when you look at a face shape and you look at it before and after, right? So will down the center look bad on you? No, you fully could wear it down the center. I just think that if I had to push the needle, I'd push it towards parting it to a side because it's going to create the look that we're going for a little bit easier. You could still get it to get that look down the center. It would just be harder to manipulate your hair to get that volume in those areas. So the first thing I'll tell you to do is you put the product in your hair, you tilt your head upside down just like you normally do. You're going to start drying it. It's going to dry slower than normal because it's got product in your hair, faster than it used to because you've got so much less hair. So people will say, oh, but this is way more work for her because now she's got all these layers and stuff to deal with. You will still get this entire style if you do it the way that I'm doing it right now, done in less time than it took you to dry your hair before. You will just do a completely different process in that time frame, right? So it's not going to take more time for you. Do you have a modifier for your blow dryer like this? Like one of these little things?
I have a Dyson
Airwrap. Okay. So they have modifiers as well. I mean, like kind of because they have the, they have the little like. So that will work. I'm trying to think if you can take the modifier off of that one. I know. Either way, my only point was that at this point when you're trying to dry it, you don't have to worry about a modifier. You just need to get the moisture out. So you're just trying to get the airflow going. So more airflow is actually better, right? It doesn't have to be as concentrated as that will give it. So you would tilt over. I'm not going to tilt you over because I don't have to. I'm just going to push your hair forward. It's going to be in your face and drive you crazy. But start like this. The key that I do want you to think about when you're drying it is that when you're tilting forward, put your hand, grab this for a second, and I'm going to have you kind of pretend I'm going to have you tilt your head forward like you kind of normally would at home. And then I want you to put the blow dryer up like you're going to blow dry your hair. Okay, so that is exactly, so what we want to modify this. So I'm going to go down, I want you to bring your hand up this way, and I want you to blow dry it like this, okay? The reason for that is this is going to cause frizz, right? So this is going to cause a lot of extra frizz because you're blowing that air up the hair shaft. So it's going to create a lot of frizz. And this is going to smooth the hair down, but this is also going to get into these roots and get them nice and dry. And it's going to get them dry forward so that when you end up back like this, it's going to give a little bit more root lift in there.
Okay.
So that, again, is one of those minor things that actually is, it's a big deal. Not only, sorry, I'm jumping around because I'm like, there's so many things that I don't want to forget about that. It's a big deal. It'll make a big difference in terms of the frizz and the way how like polished your hair looks. But also, if your hair gets tangled, that will make it much better. It'll get way less tangles going down the hair shaft like that as you're combing through it. Then doing this, it's basically like you're putting tangles back into it. You're blowing all that hair around, and then it just like retangles up, and then you get up. You're like, oh, now I gotta untangle my hair now, right? Like, does that make sense? It might not have been so dramatic with your longer hair because it was so long that the ends were all still down here. But now that it's shorter, those ends are up here too. So those ends are gonna be blowing around when you do that. So those will get like, does that make sense? Sounds ridiculous.
No.
Trust me on it. I mean, I know you will, but like, so I'm doing the same thing. I'm just doing it like this, okay? Instead, but the air isn't changing. This is heading down your hair shaft like this, very much on purpose. The only thing that I would change for me is I'll blow dry this stuff up because on you I want a little bit of lift right there. So, and so I keep on, even though I'm blow drying this up like this, right? I'm still blow drying it down the hair shaft because I'm blowing it up, but I'm not blowing it like this, right? I'm doing this. And I'm combing through it at the same time. So I'm getting this up off the hair shaft, but I'm also minimizing those tangles or any potential tangles because I'm combing those tangles out as I'm getting it dry. But I'm also making sure that that air is heading down the shaft, not even like this, so that's less damaging. But do you see the difference? Like, even when, you know, like if you put, like, see how you get these little flyaways right in here, right? Like all those little flyaways, right? But if I comb through this and start smoothing some of those out, those are gonna lay in a little bit more. They're not gonna be as dramatic. That's kind of a bad scenario. I mean, like bad way to show that because that's not what I want those to do. But if I do this, you know, those will lay down a little bit more because I'm pointing it down the hair shaft. So that was not a good explanation, but I don't know. Now I'm going to go and do everything I just told you not to do. Just so you know. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is because I know that I'm going to take a round brush through it and I can smooth it out, right? So I'm telling you how to do it at home. It's kind of a do what I say, not what I do scenario. I'm telling you what to do at home because I know that it'll keep you from making any mistakes that are going to cause more problems for you. Whereas here, like, I have an easier vantage point, so I can control a little bit easier. So for me, if I get a little bit of texture in it when I do that, I'm not really worried about it because I'm just going to smooth that out anyway. And it's going to be really easy for me to do it. So, but you at home, it's going to be a lot harder. So I'm just going to, you know, but it'll actually be easier for you to get it to dry than it will for me. I need to get this in here and get some of that moisture out. I can't remember, I don't know, honestly, if you remember if you said this. Have you used a round brush before?
Not really.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to show you how.
Okay.
When you learn how, it's a little awkward at first, but it's actually they're pretty easy to use.
Okay.
Once you know how to use them correctly, but using them correctly is super important.
Yeah.
Because it's going to change whether or not they work or you'll love them or hate them based on how you use them, right?
Okay.
You have the air wrap, so it's got a round brush attachment, right? So you've got one unit that you can use. So I would use that instead of the way I'm going to show you.
Okay.
But the process will be slightly different from the way I'm showing you. Because you'll have one unit versus two. But the key elements, which I'll explain, are going to be the same. You're going to do the same thing. This is going to be important for both of them. For instance, like how dry we get your hair before we take that to it, you know, that round brush or the air wrap to it. That'll be the same, right? You know, the kind of tension that we use, the process of how we're going through it. All of those things are gonna be the same. You just will have one unit versus two. The only detriment to those and this is really a small price to pay, if you will, but it's something to be aware of, is because you can't control where the air is going on those, the air comes out of the brush. it's a little harder to smooth hair out. It can be a little harder to smooth hair out.
Okay.
Because when I brown brush it, I'm very specifically pointing the airflow at a certain area to minimize any frizz. So I'm sealing that cuticle down as I'm going through it. But you can't do that with an air wrap. But if you can't use two things and you can use an air wrap, you're gonna get better results from using an air wrap than not using this other stuff and doing it totally, you know what I mean? So. Okay, so see how dry it feels right now? It's pretty close to being dry, right? This is when, if you're gonna use a round brush, I would take a modifier and I put it in the brush. Now, since you actually have an air wrap at home, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do this because you're not gonna have a brush or a blow dryer in hand. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take the air wrap. Okay, this is a little more damp even than I would start with a little bit drier than this. Okay, but I mean, it's fine for this. So let me see your hand for a second. I'm gonna have you put that in your hand. Now, the front, we're gonna do this whole front section straight down like you're gonna wear bangs, okay? So you just take a big section like this, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna take the round brush attachment for your dryer or for your air wrap. You're gonna put this in your hair. So we're just gonna go like this, put it just like this, okay. And now you can even use your other hand to kind of like hold on, like just to get it in there, like perfect. And now you're just gonna pull through it just like that, exactly. And then when you get to the ends, okay, do you feel how much tension there is on that? It's you're not pulling it, right? It's not like pulling it, but it's not soft either. Like there's still some tension there, okay? So we're gonna comb through it just to make sure that it gets to the ends. Okay, now we're gonna start back here again. Now let's do it again. We're gonna go all the way out, and then when you get basically to the ends, then you're gonna come back lightly. So I'm not like ripping it in, like, you know, we're gonna come back lightly, and then we're gonna pull it out again. Okay, and then we're gonna go back up. We're gonna pull it out again, and we're just gonna do this just a couple times. And at the very last one, you're just gonna go really slowly all the way out to the ends, okay? That's all you're gonna do. Now, when you're doing it with the air wrap, it's gonna have heat involved. So as you go through it and pull it through that same motion, that same kind of tension, that same movement, yeah, just like that. Yeah, literally like that. And you're just gonna come back up, yep, and then pull it through again. There you go. See, now the more dampness you have in it, it's gonna get stickier, right?
Okay.
As it gets a little bit drier, it's gonna get a little bit less sticky. It's gonna not grab so much. It's gonna slide through a little bit easier. That's literally all you do. So you would do that. Like, that is no exaggeration, the exact process that you will use. Now what you'll do is you'll just grab other sections, you'll comb through them. And then you'll just pull through them the same way. And that's literally what you'll do, right? Okay. It's gonna be way easier than it seems like it's gonna be. So you're gonna get your hair pretty much dry first, then you're gonna take that, you're gonna turn it on, so it's still gonna have some heat, and then you're just gonna work through those pieces like that. And I'll show you as I'm working through this, like kind of how you style each section or the area, but it's all gonna be pretty easy. This stuff in the bang, even though you're not wearing a bang, is gonna come straight forward. The reason that we're doing that is because we want control over it. So since I want you to be able to part it down the center or on either side, I want you to be able to do that the same day. I don't want you to have to like style your hair and be like, well, today is this side because I styled it all this way. I can't get it to go the other way. So I want full control. So if you do it straight down like you're gonna wear a bang, it doesn't matter if we bring it this way, right? Or if I bring it this way, it's still gonna get volume and work for me. I'm still gonna be able to get control and shape out of it, right? So the front piece, all this stuff, you're gonna go straight down like a bang. Everything in front of the ear, you're just gonna come forward, okay? And then everything behind that, you're just gonna go under. Now here's the only difference that you can do, if you want to, is you can do some of them out and then some of them under. If you want that really like flowy, kind of like, you know, like messy kind of, you know, bend and then kicks out in some areas and goes under in other areas, that's how you would do that. You just grab some sections and you go, oh, this one I'm gonna kick it out at the bottom. This one I'm gonna go under at the bottom. You know, this stuff goes, you can do it either way. Or a lot of times if you do it all under and you get some good bend and you just scrunch it up, it'll just naturally kind of have some areas like here where it just kind of kicks out and other areas where it flips under and that kind of stuff. So, so we'll kind of walk through that real quick. I'll show you. So this is what I'm having you do, right? Is I'm just having you do this part of it. So I was just drying this part, getting that dry. And now this is the part that basically you're doing with the air wrap, okay? And then at the very end, what you can do if you want is you can hit it with a cold shot while it's up like this. That'll lock in some of that bend, actually. Okay. So it's kind of like a metal. Hair heats up, becomes pliable. As it cools down, it locks it into place. So just kind of lock some of that in. And then we just get a little bit of like softness and bend at the ends. Put all it on like this. Is that getting too hot or anything on you?
No.
See, I might take one. I start it going under. I always start them like round brushing under. And then if I want it to kick out, I might, after I've round brushed it under, go back in and just kick this out. Okay, like. Right, so maybe there's just a little bit of bend in certain areas, right? So it gets like some goes under, some will go up. The reason that I do it under first is because it's easier to smooth the ends out going under with it than it is to try to smooth them out when you're flipping it out. So just to make the ends look really smooth and polished, I like to go under and then just kick it out a little bit at the end.
Okay.
Feeling in shock yet?
A little bit, yeah.
That's fair. So about, well, I know you started growing it out about 10 years ago, but when's the last time you had hair this length? 8 years ago? 9 years ago?
Yeah, yeah, probably. And to be honest, I liked this length, but I was so ready to just have my long hair back that I didn't stop there. But when
Yeah.
I look back at pictures of different lengths, I do like this length.
I mean, like I said, I anticipate that you will be, I fully anticipate you should, I feel like you should be a little bit in shock. And then, like, I think you'll be comfortable with it. By the time we get it all done and get a style like I should, I think you'll be comfortable with it. But I do, like, I would say that I would not be surprised if, like, by the time you shampoo it next, you're not like, what did I just do? What just happened? The first time you go to style it, what did I just do? You know? But I think once you get, I don't want to say past that, right? But I think once you kind of like go, okay, and the initial kind of like shock wears off, then I legitimately believe you'll be like, I'm so glad. And you'll want to actually go shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, you know? That's 9 out of 10 times that's what happens. The times that that's not true is in scenarios where like, you can usually tell, like I know when that's gonna happen because the reaction after you cut your hair off, the initial like snip and it's gone, it's not a, okay, it's like an immediate, world just ended. Something, you know, like that's usually when you're like, oh, there's nothing here. Yeah, you're just not ready to cut it short. Like there's nothing you can do at that point. You can't, you know. But okay, see, I'm picking this up. I'm not pulling it out. Okay, all of that's going to help get us a little bit more root lift. It's going to encourage the lift that we've already created with the way we dried it. So when you're doing that at home too, pick it up off of your scalp. Always think to like pull it away from your scalp. Never try to pull it down. A little more awkward because now your shoulders and elbows are up high. But again, all of that stuff will help.
Okay.
And we heat that up. So we lighten this stuff up more. It's just heavy still. There's still a lot I need to fix on the cut, just a heads up. It's not done, but we're gonna get it there. Oh, it scared me. I started hearing noises over there, and I forgot they were there. Exhale all the way. So that's great. Totally around now, sorry. I forget you have another mirror over there. I just realized. Let me do this real quick. Shake it all out. Just going to go through and texturize the ends a little bit to blend everything together better. Sorry, that's right in your face. Is that just driving you crazy?
Okay. No.
It's going to lighten that up. I just need to comb it down and kind of see where the layers are hitting to see where I can texturize this out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to show you something here. See if I can find a spot to show it to you with. Okay, this is, I mean, it's not bad already, but let me see if I can, yeah. I'm going to hand you this real quick. And then, okay. So I'm still going to clean this up a little bit though. But see how like when, even at this point, right, I still need to blend this in a little bit more. When I comb it down, you don't really see a lot of layering in it. There's still a little bit, like I feel like there's a little bit of bulk right in there. That if I go through and texturize this out, it'll blend a little bit better. But that's kind of what you want to see. That's kind of what I was talking about. That is like if I see how that's kind of thick and bulky right there, right? If I layer some of this out a little bit or texturize some of those ends a little bit, it'll blend it out. And then it'll blend in even better, and it'll eventually get to the place where you don't even know, like it just looks like one length. And if we get to that place, but you still mess it up, and there's still a lot of layers in it, right? Then we're at a place where you can get some movement and texture out of it, but you're not going to feel like you just see ends, this choppiness become really hard to manage, and you'll still be able to get all that stuff, you know, kind of back in ponytail. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm just going to go through and just texturize all that out. I just want everything to blend well so that it's almost like it kind of acts like it's one length, but it's not at all. Are you leaving, Danielle? Yeah. Oh. Her hair looks great, by the way.
Thank you.
Just line these up a little bit. If you part it to one side or the other, do you have one that you feel more comfortable with?
I'm more parted on the right side.
Okay, now the last thing I always do this. Talk about it every time. I shake it all, like, and this is something like, do not get your hair and like, oh, it's perfect, and then let it sit. Get it in there and just shake it all up, because the more times you get like your hands in there and start to get movement and texture in it, right? Like messiness and texture, all that stuff. That's really what kind of like creates the overall like shape and movement. You know what I mean? Like the kind of style in hair. Too contrived ends up being just kind of contrived, you know? So like if you want the volume and the kind of pieciness and the kickiness and that kind of stuff, you get that by like getting your hands in and playing with it more than you're gonna get that by just round brushing it, taking it out, and then there you go. We still have length. We've got a lot of actually of layers. But again, when we take these, the important thing I think is when we take these down, right, comb this out, you don't see a lot of layering going on, okay? So that's gonna help minimize, like worst case scenario, you get out of the shower, you let your hair air dry, you don't do anything to it, you just kind of pull it all down, right? You're basically in, okay, you comb this back. It's not gonna look completely disheveled, like, oh my gosh, my hair is just a big giant mess because I have layers in it, right? But if we add a little bit, even just a little bit of bend to those, and then kind of shake it all out and mess it up, right? You start to get a lot of movement and texture and play in it, right? Like there's actually a lot. Now this is why one of the reasons I think you really should try just letting it air dry one time, which is because you have so much of this natural texture anyway. Your hair just does that nicely. Still pulls in a ponytail. It'll stay off your face completely. The only thing that's not gonna stay off your face probably is like that stuff right there. It's like a few hairs, and that if you just take this and then pull it back, that's such a small amount of hair that it'll stay back, right? So like you can twist it under, twist it forward, or like bobby pin it. You'll be able to get that to stay back off your face when you absolutely need to. But the difference is when you don't want it to or don't need it to, and you want to have some softness, it kind of adds a little bit of like elegance when it falls. There's a little point of interest. Let me put it this side so people can actually see it, right? There's a little point of interest that just kind of breaks at your cheekbones and draws a little bit more emphasis to jaw structure, the cheekbones, eyes, that kind of stuff. Does that feel okay?
I love it.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
You were quiet and it was making me nervous. I'm not gonna lie. Full disclosure. I'm like, okay, I hope she doesn't hate it because it's so gone by now.
It's shocking, but I love it. And to touch it feels amazing.
Does it feel okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's cute, I think, but I did it, so I'm obviously gonna think
I love it. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. Thank you. Okay, now if you stuck around this long, first of all, thank you. And I want to know, did you love her hair? Did you hate her hair? What'd you think? Should she have left it long? Should she take it shorter? Comment below and tell me. And also tell me if you caught the sarcasm in the intro. How well do you know me, actually? And if you liked this video, you're gonna love this one. So why don't you head over there, and I'll see you over there.